Harry Potter is something that people watch around the holidays, especially during Christmas time. They're not technically Christmas films, but people treat them as such. And you have to admit, the Christmas scenes do feel pretty magical and never fail to get you into the Christmas spirit. However, we're gonna take a step away from the movies and look at the 7 novels. In this video, I'm going to go through each of the 7 books, look at Christmas Day for each one, and rank them from the worst Christmas Day to the best. I reread every winter in the books to make sure I got every detail to help make these decisions. And while going through, I realized that most Christmas days in the series are not that great, and you'll see what I mean as we go through. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and sharing. It will greatly help the channel with the algorithm. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on all of my other social medias, all of which are linked down below, and all of which house similar content that I make here on this channel. Now, let's dive into each Christmas day in Harry Potter. At number 7, the worst Christmas day in the entire series goes to book number 7, The Deathly Hallows. This day was nothing short of absolutely depressing. It started with Harry being forced to see every second of his parents dying in excruciating detail from the point of view of the man who made him an orphan. While dreaming this, Harry was incredibly ill, and Hermione was forced to stay awake all night and all morning to care for him, and by the time he woke up on Christmas morning, she was exhausted and had bags under her eyes. Harry woke up to find that he now had a new scar on his body, which was a circle right over his chest where the Horcrux had latched onto his skin and did not release. On top of that, this Christmas morning brought another injury for Harry. We find out that he was bitten by Voldemort's snake Nagini, which he had received the night before, so we had to deal with that pain as well. And to make things even worse, Harry found out that the wand he had gotten from Ollivander 6 years earlier was snapped in half. This was devastating to Harry, and he took this news worse than pretty much anything else in the series besides maybe some characters' deaths. The book described that he was gutted about losing it, and Harry even said that losing it was worse than any physical pain he had ever been through. And that's saying something, because he had been through a lot of physical pain throughout the 7 books. Clearly, losing his wand was one of the worst things that ever happened to him. That alone could make this the worst Christmas. But don't worry, it gets even worse. If that wasn't enough already, this Christmas was the day he read Rita Skeeter's book about Dumbledore. Reading it, he said that he felt sickened and betrayed by a man he thought he could trust. It made him question every interaction and the entire relationship that he had with Dumbledore. By the end of this horrible Christmas, Harry reflected, wondering what else he could lose after losing Ron, the man he thought Dumbledore was, and his wand. This is clearly the worst Christmas day in the entire series, and honestly, it's not even close. Coming in at number 6, I am putting the 4th book, The Goblet of Fire. This was a pretty rough day for everybody involved, and that sucks because on paper, this had the potential to be the best Christmas day. This is solely because it was the day of the magnificent Yule Ball. The ball was a disaster though. Ron was immediately upset because of his awful dress robes, which people did not hide their distaste for, including his date Padma Patil.
Don't you look dashing?
Harry spent the night jealously watching Cho with Cedric, and was even forced to talk with Cedric at the end of the ball, which only made him even more angry. Meanwhile, Ron refused to dance with Padma, who crossed her arms in anger. He instead jealously watched Hermione and Krum dance, not looking at all happy. Harry did dance with Parvati, but he forced her to leave the dance floor after just one song, and she joined Padma sitting with her arms crossed. Then she left Harry, her date, to dance with another guy, something her sister Padma would eventually do as well, leaving Ron.
Are you going to ask me to dance or not?
No.
By the end of the dance, Harry literally said that he did not have a good time and he couldn't wait for the dance to be over. Hermione's night started off well, everybody in awe of how pretty she was, and she had a good time talking to Krum, who became very chatty for the first time ever. However, this was ruined by Ron, who called her out for fraternizing with the enemy, said Krum only asked her out to get close to Harry, said she was unloyal to Harry, and made fun of Krum by calling him Vicky.
You're fraternizing with the enemy.
The enemy?
And it didn't stop there. When they got back to the common room, the two grew a crowd as they were shouting at each other. This ended with Hermione telling Ron that he should have asked her out first and not as a last resort, which made Ron sort of mad but also pretty embarrassed.
Next time there's a ball, pluck up the courage and ask me before somebody else does.
All of that made for a pretty awful night, but again, it gets worse. Harry and Ron overheard Hagrid getting his heart broken by Maxime. He admitted that he was a half-giant to her, and he asked which of her parents had giant blood. This made her storm away, very insulted, saying that she was just big-boned. Yeah, okay, big-boned my ass. Hagrid then sat there for a while in his misery, and finally got up and walked into the dark grounds with his head down. And as depressing as that sounds, it only got worse, because Rita Skeeter overheard this, which led to her publishing an article about it that humiliated Hagrid. So all in all, it was a pretty terrible day for all of those involved, but I definitely don't think that it's worse than Christmas Day in book 7. At number 5, I'm putting Christmas Day in the third book, The Prisoner of Azkaban. This Christmas is a huge step up from the bottom 2 on this list, but to me, it's still the third worst Christmas in the series. Harry stayed up all night and all Christmas morning, obsessed with how much he hated and wanted to kill Sirius Black for betraying his parents. When everyone else woke up, Ron and Hermione tried to convince him to drop it, but Harry did not. Christmas morning also brought the news that Buckbeak was set to be executed, a pretty diminishing thing to hear on every day, much less on Christmas. Ron and Hermione also spent the entire day fighting with each other about their pets, which definitely brought the Christmas spirit down. This led to Ron protecting Scabbers from Crookshanks, Crookshanks jumping on Ron's chest, and Ron kicking the cat, which greatly upset Hermione. The two fought so much that day that Harry eventually gave up on trying to make them get along. Christmas dinner was highlighted by McGonagall and Trelawney fighting, making everyone rather uncomfortable, including Dumbledore, who had to play peacemaker. The one good thing that happened was Harry getting his Firebolt broomstick, the greatest and fastest broom ever made. However, this was ruined when Hermione went to tell McGonagall about it, and McGonagall then confiscated it. She said that Harry could not have it until it was stripped down, which is not something you want to be done to a brand new broomstick, much less the best broomstick in the entire world. Hermione telling McGonagall had repercussions too, because following that night, Ron and Harry did not talk to Hermione for quite a few weeks. Again, this is not as bad as the first 2 Christmases on this list, but it's still not great. Coming in 4th place, I have Christmas Day in the second novel, The Chamber of Secrets. Again, this Christmas was a little better than the last, but still not great. One bright spot was that everyone left to go home, meaning nobody was there to whisper about Harry being the heir of Slytherin as he walked through the halls. Christmas morning brought Harry an all-time low of a present from the Dursleys, which was a single toothpick and a note asking if he could stay at Hogwarts for the summer holiday too. A better thing to wake up to, though, was finding out that the Polyjuice Potion was ready, meaning the trio could finally put their long-awaited plan into action. They dreaded drinking the Polyjuice Potion all day, but were distracted by some fun times with the Weasley family. The execution of their Polyjuice plan on Christmas night went pretty well. They successfully knocked Crabbe and Goyle out, and though they took a long time to find the Slytherin common room, they eventually found it and had Draco spill everything he knew. The things that went wrong, though, brought everything down a bit. Finding out that they were wrong about Malfoy being the heir of Slytherin was a shock and was a tough blow because they were now back to square one. And worst of all, Hermione was turned into a cat, which took a long time to reverse, seeing as Polyjuice Potion is not meant for animals. As a result of this Christmas blunder, she had to spend a few weeks in the hospital wing to get it reversed. So all in all, there were a lot more good things that happened than the other Christmases we've gone over, but the things that went wrong on this Christmas were still a bit of a downer. In 3rd place, I landed on Book 6, The Half-Blood Prince. Just to get this out of the way, this video is based on the novels, not the films. So luckily for me, I do not have to address that completely unnecessary and never followed up scene where the Weasley's house is attacked. I still don't know what they were thinking adding that scene when it wasn't in the book, when they literally could have used that time to give us more Voldemort memories. Looking at the book though, this was the one and only Christmas spent at the Weasley's home, the Burrow, which makes this Christmas slightly more special from the get-go. The morning started off well, Harry getting a number of great presents, and even getting a swooping sensation in his stomach when Ginny, the person he was crushing on heavily, touched his hair. Mrs. Weasley had a good morning, sporting a gold necklace and a diamond-encrusted hat that Fred and George had gotten her with their newfound wealth. Ron's morning was a little bit more rough. First, he got a horrific My Sweetheart necklace from Lavender, and then he spilled gravy when trying to impress Fleur. Another upside though was Lupin joining them for breakfast, though he was shamed by Mrs. Weasley, who told him that Tonks, the person he had rejected, was spending Christmas alone, which made Lupin feel very guilty. The biggest thing that happened that day though was Percy returning to the Burrow for the first time in a few years, and he was accompanied by the Minister of Magic, Rufus Scrimgeour. Scrimgeour made it seem as though they were just dropping in because Percy couldn't resist seeing his family, and this made Mrs. Weasley thrilled. However, the others saw through this. Percy's appearance made Arthur, Fred, George, and Ginny very stony-faced and apprehensive. Scrimgeour ended up getting what he wanted, which was talking to Harry one-on-one, something that Dumbledore had spent a lot of time ensuring would not happen. Here, the minister pitched a plan to have Harry pop into the ministry every so often to make people think he was working with the government, but Harry put him in his place in the most satisfying way. He told Scrimgeour that he didn't like what the ministry was doing, told him that he would never work with them, and said that he was Dumbledore's man through and through. The worst thing that happened that Christmas Day though happened back in the kitchen. Here, Fred, George, and Ginny splattered food on Percy's glasses, seeing through his little drop-by, and Percy stormed out furiously. This unfortunately made Mrs. Weasley very upset, and she cried a lot that day. However, that being the worst thing is not as bad as the last Christmas ranked on this list, where Hermione was deformed into a cat which took weeks to fix. I would also say that Harry shutting the minister down was more of a positive thing than a negative because of how satisfying it was. Harry finally got what he wanted to say to the ministry office chest after everything they put him through the year before. So overall, I think this Christmas turned out a good deal better than any of the other Christmases we've gone over in this video so far. Christmas Day in the 5th book, The Order of the Phoenix, is what I'm putting in second place. This Christmas on paper should have been the worst in the whole series. Mr. Weasley had just been attacked, and they were spending the holiday in the stuffy, creepy, and unsettling home of number 12 Grimmauld Place. However, this Christmas turned out to be pretty good. Sirius was so happy that he was having company for the holiday that he went above and beyond, cleaning, decorating, and making the house look unrecognizable. He was determined to make sure that everyone would enjoy themselves as much, if not more, than they would have done at Hogwarts. He even sang Christmas carols as he walked down the halls. Harry also got one of his best hauls of presents, including a DADA book from Remus and Sirius to help him come up with lessons for Dumbledore's army, and hilariously, a portrait of Harry that Dobby painted himself. The Christmas breakfast that day also included so many people, more so than we had ever seen for a Christmas meal outside of the Hogwarts meals. This included Harry, Ron, Hermione, Fred, George, Ginny, Molly, Bill, Mundungus, Mad-Eye, Tonks, and Lupin. Whew, that was a lot. They also visited Mr. Weasley in the hospital, who was doing so much better, which is the best Christmas news you can get, considering the fact that they weren't even sure if he would live. There was also some weird stuff that happened that day. This includes the trio plus Ginny meeting Gilderoy Lockhart, whose memory was still gone. I guess karma's a bitch. While there, they also got to see Neville and his gran, though the circumstances of this were pretty depressing when they saw Neville's parents as well. The worst thing that happened that Christmas Day was Percy sending the sweater Mrs. Weasley had made for him back. I would say that this is a better outcome than Percy storming out following his siblings attacking him with food though. With all of the good things that I listed about this day, I think it's safe to say that this Christmas deserves to be in second place. And finally, in the number 1 spot, we have the Christmas from the first book, The Philosopher's Stone, or if you're from America, The Sorcerer's Stone. This is by far the best Christmas in the series. Not only is it Harry's first real Christmas, but it's the only Christmas in the series where nothing bad happens. Harry and the 4 youngest Weasley boys had the common room to themselves where they played wizard's chess, Harry playing with his brand new set that he'd gotten that day. Harry also got his first Weasley sweater from Mrs. Weasley, which he wore as they had a fantastic snowball fight on the grounds before returning to the fire in the Gryffindor common room to heat back up, which honestly sounds amazing. Harry also experienced the best Christmas dinner he had ever had up to that point, and this was paired with many of the professors loosening up and showing their more fun side. One of the biggest things that happened that day though was Harry getting his invisibility cloak that used to belong to his father. And that Christmas night, he used this cloak, which eventually led to him seeing what his parents looked like for the first time in his life in the Mirror of Erised, a truly special moment. I think that this shaped up to be the best Christmas by far. That's my opinion though. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all. I hope you all have a fantastic day no matter what you celebrate. That's all for today though. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video.